Welcome to White Rabbit Podcast with Katillist Jones, where your reality might be challenged. So leave your feelings at the fucking door and let's dive down some rabbit holes.
Liberal advisory. Truthful content.
There are children being ritualistically sodomized by deep state operatives of reptilian descent.
Reptilian? You mean like lizard people?
That's right.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years.
If you want to stop me, you're gonna have to fucking kill me!
Please welcome Katillist Jones. How are you, brother?
Dude, you must have been down the rabbit hole as long as I have.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this.
Eventually, you get to the juice box people.
It's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file.
We choose to go to the moon. That was a joke about the world being flat, right? Wasn't it?
Excuse me. Has anybody seen a white rabbit?
And welcome, fellow truthers and conspiracy junkies, to another episode of White Rabbit. I am your host, Katillist Jones. And as you guys know, it has been cooling off outside to the point where I'm fucking freezing. So I decided we're going to heat it up here today in the studio. And I got just the person to do that. I have Monica Perez with me. How in the heck are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I did just get back from a beach vacation, so I am pretty hot right now. It's true.
Nice. Very nice. I'm jealous. It's been extreme freezing weather. Am I coming through like a robot to you?
You sound good.
Okay, perfect. For those listening on my side, could you please let everybody know who you are and what you do?
Sure. I'm Monica Perez. I have the Monica Perez Show, which is one of my latest incarnation of my. Well, I used to have a radio show, then I have a podcast, The Propaganda Report. Now I'm back to the Monica Perez Show. I really was never meant to be any of this. I just was talking to somebody at a wedding once about being an anarcho-capitalist, and she was a radio producer, and she's like, oh my gosh, you have to tell people about it. Anyway, it's been a long time since then. Somebody just asked me the other day, like, are you still an anarcho-capitalist? And I had to say I'm a philosophical agorist, but I feel like the forces that control the world right now are not going to let a self-ordering society emerge, at least not in my lifetime. So I just decided, actually, like, I should probably figure out how to define those forces and maybe do a little like thing for normies, like who are they and whatever. We always try to do that, but it becomes more and more evident as time goes by who they really is.
So one of the questions that and we're going to dive really deep into everything you just said, because I want to know, I want to know the Monica Perez story, what doesn't get talked about on the shows. So, no, it's not going to be scary.
I unstream it from my YouTube?
No, this is
because like a friend
fun.
of mine said, is there anybody you can tell everything to? And he said, well, besides my friends, everybody.
Yes.
It's fine. You can tell anybody anything as long as nobody knows you. So yeah, there you go.
What was your first oh shit moment? And I used to phrase this as what was your first red pill moment? Mm-hmm. But after diving down so many things, we have red pill moments daily. And so I'm wondering what your big oh shit, this world isn't what I thought it was moment.
Well, I guess there are two. I never thought of it that way, but there really are two, because I'm thinking it happened. The one I want to answer happened after I had a radio show, but that was after I'd already figured out there was something, not right about the narrative. So I'm going to give you both of them. The first one was, I remember distinctly, like I was vacuuming in my bedroom, and I how long ago must have been, because I think I had 3 kids in diapers at the time. And I don't know what it was. I think it was like George W. Bush, like signed the thing to, mandate curly light bulbs or outlaw Edison light bulb, whatever. I was just like, are you, what? Like, this is And I was never a Republican. I was always raised as kind of like a classical liberal, libertarian, whatever. So I never identified with Republicans, but I'm like, come on, like this is going too far. And I realized in that moment that no matter what you start out with, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, whatever it is, if you have a seat of government, somebody's going to sit in it and they're going to have the power and the motivation to make it more and more powerful. And I thought back about like, when did it happen to us? And I thought, well, I thought like World War I was a time when it really changed because we got involved in this foreign war. I think we maybe even called up the National Guard to go into the foreign war. Then I thought maybe it was before that. Maybe it was, because I kind of maybe started with LBJ, then FDR, then Wilson. And then I went back and I was like, I think maybe it was Lincoln. And the more I went back, I thought there were all these turning points. And if one didn't happen in a certain way, like Henry Clay almost prevented the Civil War, like he almost solved the slavery issue, which the slavery issue was, from what I understand, like the real sticking point was we paid for them and you're going to, it's not right to pay for people or think you own them, but we would be bankrupt because you're taking everything from us if you liberate these slaves. And Henry Clay had some kind of solution for it, I think. So I thought, okay, so he kicked the can, but eventually the government, the thing gets bigger. And then, so I realized then that like this thing of limited government was impossible. And after that, I stumbled upon Democracy, the God That Failed by Hans Hermann Hoppe. And I don't know if you've ever read that, but it opens with that basic premise that like the big turning point was World War I and it was over. And then he says like democracy, you could replace it with anarchy, anarcho-capitalism, or if you can't get that, monarchy's better. And so World War I, like basically overtly destroyed all the monarchies of the world, like the last remaining, I guess, more or less. I mean, you still have like the Dutch and the British and stuff. But I realized then this is my aha moment, that government was not necessary. Like this kind of enforcement government was not necessary, that society is self-ordering. And that the question of the existence, the question of the necessity of government today is as unthinkable, unaskable as the question of the existence of God was in maybe the Middle Ages. Like people couldn't, from what we're told, people couldn't conceive of there not being a God. They wouldn't even understand the question. So when I say government isn't necessary, people can't understand it. And theoretically, I believe that's true. And at that time, I thought it was a question of ideology, but now I realize that there is no ideology, that when we're given ideology, the left-right paradigm, domestically, foreign, whatever, it's 100% a distraction and a placeholder. I have a really funny quote if we want to really encapsulates it. Where is it? I'll find
that.
It.
Is crazy that was your oh shit moment. So it was because of signing of a bill. And I do remember this, but I was younger, but that was kind of a huge shift for us as well, because then we had these light bulbs that not only go bad way faster, and they're told us they're supposed to be so much more efficient and blah, blah, blah. But the real thing is now we're not getting that natural warm light that
they're
we're
terrible
supposed
for you.
to be getting.
And they don't light up as fast. They're hard to dispose of. It could be as simple as the new ones cost 5 times as much. But another thing I noticed at that time was that it wasn't going to kick in for like 5 years. It wasn't going to kick in until Bush was no longer in office. So it was obviously a big picture plan. And it didn't matter who was doing it. He was such a liberal. Like that was the thing, that people like bitched at him for stealing the election or being a warmonger. These Republicans, they're all liberals. Like Nixon's sin is like closing the gold window, putting in price and price controls and opening China without any conditions, and then promoting China. It wasn't the Watergate, which he was totally framed for. They never criticized Republicans for what they should be criticized for. And then my other aha moment was the Boston Marathon bombing. which I can give you in a nutshell if you want.
Yeah, I want to get more into that. But before we do that,
Yeah, no
like,
hurry.
so that was where you were at then. Do you think, are you pretty sure now that like it's just always been like that from the beginning of time?
Since the beginning of time,
As far as like
yeah,
governing bodies that attempt to rule
yeah.
and
Yes, I do think that. I think there's something different now, but I'll tell you what makes me really think that. There's a book called Against the Grain, which was written by James Scott. I think it's a Yale professor who I invited on my show. And he was like, I don't truck with libertarians. I was like, oh, okay, sorry. but uh, but it was really good book. And I mean, it was criticized because it's not his area of expertise. So he was just dabbling in something beyond him, which is probably better because he didn't bring all that kind of fart sniffing that you bring when you've got your own, you're the king of the castle or whatever. But the book was about, or what can, in the answer to your question was that it seemed like, writing, accounting, record keeping, like numbers and letters were all initiated in the service of keeping records of taxes, of making sure that laws and taxes and stuff, and the reason it's against the grain is it went even back before that, which is the domestication of grain was possible. People understood how to do it for like I think the thing was like 4,000 years before the agricultural revolution. They would just curate things. They would keep tubers in the ground. They would curate the strawberries. They would make cul-de-sacs that deer just got stuck in. They would just sit around and do nothing and use what they knew to be like, hey, look at this, I'm going to sit around and do nothing and all this stuff is just going to grow. Garden of Eden. This is the Garden of Eden. And then, but if you wanted to steal their food and it was like a bunch of potatoes in the ground, you'd have to like force them to dig them up and they don't rot. So when they started, the impression I got from the book, maybe it was speculation or whatever, is that it was a governmental, like a proto-government or a real government or whatever, like it was an outside force, an exploiting force that encouraged, fostered grain growth so that it would be like a farm that it all harvests at once. You have to take it out. It's dryable. It's portable. They could come. They knew the day you're going to have all this extra and they could take the extra. They could monetize your effort. And
what civilization did this?
This was like before, so I can't remember, like, I'm just going to say like the Code of Hammurabi or the stuff where they have like Sumerian texts. I believe what he said in that book was the earliest evidence of writing are basically like tax rolls or, like lists of slaves or whatever. So that's what it was. That's why it caught on. And so that, in answer to your question, do I think it's like true from the beginning of time? Yes. I think that the entire battle from the beginning of time is we are trying to kick the can of tyranny. And that's why, like, Jefferson said, like, I'll give him credit for this, although I think he
hijacked
I'm not a
it.
super fan that I once was. I prefer Patrick Henry, but he said like the blood, the tree of
Oh yes,
revolution, the blood of
the tree.
tyrants and revolutionaries. The tree of
Yeah,
what?
the tree of liberty must
Yes,
be
right.
led with something. Yes, you're right along the lines of that.
Yeah.
But
So that's what we're doing, except for now we have technology, but there could always be a solar flare. Like we
maybe
have technology, like, so we keep kicking the can of tyranny forever and ever and ever. That's the story of civilization is people trying to steal. You get power to steal from you, and sometimes it flips. So like you and me are not necessarily more virtuous. We're just not steal. I mean, I try not to steal. Like I didn't invest in Palantir, even though I was like, that's totally going to make a lot of money. And I try not to do bad things like that. But the idea is like maybe people flip places. There's a revolution and then a different group runs it, but it's still just the story of civilization is just trying to steal from each other. But now
it's energy vampires. It's energy vampires just stealing and taking the place of the next, right?
And physical and physical energy. Like that's the thing. Like if they get you to grow grain instead of wait for you to be hungry to dig up a tuber, that's actually making you manifest that energy. Whether it was probably was a psychological operation from the beginning. Like they probably talked you into it.
Monica, did you see that propaganda documentary they had on Netflix? I believe it was entitled "Beer Saved the World" or "How Beer Saved the World" or some shit like that.
But I have thoughts about that. Tell me.
Well, the big takeaway that I took from that film was that was where mathematics came from. Even though like I've dug into so much occultism and secret teachings and weird shit to know that that's absolute bullshit, but it is interesting that they put that in there. And you're talking about
what were they saying? Because they had to like make a recipe.
It could be that, or because they didn't want it to go bad. It was so long since I saw it.
Yeah, or store it. I'll tell you, beer and wine, they're money, they're food, they're a store of value. Like I love beer and wine. Like I think I can't drink beer because I have celiac. I can't have wheat at all, which is like I can't believe a human being can walk around not able to eat the staple food. But fortunately, there's a lot of other stuff. But the only thing my husband and I agree on is like if we're gonna do something when we retire, it's gonna be we want to buy a vineyard, a little one, not like something fantastic, but something that will grow wine because he likes wine. And I'm like, I want it because you can store it's food. It can store it for 10 years and it's just nothing but carbs really. And 20 years, 30 years if it's good. And but beer even more was like beer, I believe, predated bread.
I wouldn't be surprised because I do remember that in that documentary, they talk about it as a form of sustenance that you could actually live off of. And so that justified my drinking for a long time.
You can afford it, it looks like.
Well, not anymore. I'm a sober alcoholic. So
drunk.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, I'm working on it, but so what was with the Boston bombing? Why was that an oh shit moment for you? What did you unfold there?
So this story my regulars have heard before, so I won't give you the like 45-minute version. I'll give you the 2-minute version of it, which is I told you, maybe it was even before the show started, that I got a radio show just literally because I met a radio producer at a wedding. Like I never thought of that in my entire life. My mother, when I was young, was like, "You should be a news anchor. You got the voice. You're pretty. You're smart." And I'm like, "Ma, you don't get to just be a news anchor." Like when she said to my sister, "You should go out with Keith Hernandez. He's single. He's got a great job. He's cute." I'm like, "Ma, you don't get to just go out with Keith Hernandez." And the thought occurred. And then when I got the job, she was like, "I told you. I'm like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." So I did.
Your mom has secret powers and you just don't know about it.
Yes, she is. And now her secret powers are entirely supernatural because she died last year, but she was 95. So I feel like she gave me everything she could. But the problem is I can't. She used to say funny things, which I could repeat. And I knew this would happen. I'm not able to like make stuff up. She's not a character. She was a person. So, but she actually said that. So anyway, I got this job weirdly. It's not really a job. It didn't really pay anything, but I had a weekend show on a big radio station in Atlanta for over 8 years.
I want to dive into that because I was going to ask you about that anyway. So
yeah, sure.
If you want to go like a little bit deeper into that, like not necessarily tying it with the Boston bombing.
Yeah, sure. So, I had 3 kids in diapers, like I said. My oldest son has Down syndrome, so he was in diapers for like 6 years. So I was kind of tied to the home front for a long time. And at one point during that time, because I was an investment banker and I realized I probably wasn't going to go back to work, but I just couldn't imagine not working at all. And I also wanted to make sure I stayed somewhat relevant in case I had to pitch in and help with the expenses. So I took my time, being home to take a CFA, which is a chartered financial analyst exam. It takes 3 years to get this. So you study and you take a test, you study, you take a test, and people fail them all the time. But you need it to be a certain thing, like hedge fund manager or whatever, like funds, that kind of thing. It's so if you have this credential, you are more likely to be able to get a job. So I figured I'm staying home. So for 3 years, I studied for this thing, and it actually took me 4 years to complete them all, which I'm a little ashamed of. I wish I could be one of those people who did it all in 3, but I did take 4. I bombed the essays on one of them, but my mind was on fire. Yeah.
So you're mid-range at the top, like 1% of people.
Oh yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, it is a pretty prestigious thing. I think I probably wouldn't do as well today after having had. I thought 3 kids in diapers was bad. Try 3 teenagers during lockdown. No.
Oh shit.
I'm talking about drinking. So anyway, that was my thing, and my mind was on fire. That's when I stumbled onto the Hans Hermann Hoppe thing around that time. And I just had these ideas, which now, so this was more than 10 years ago. It was like 2011 or 2012. Now, like everything from anarcho-capitalism to conspiracy theories and all of that have become so pervasive that they're like riddled with feds at this point. Like it's been weaponized. And if not, perhaps it was started that way. Maybe that's the way it was supposed to be. But back then, like nobody really heard of that. And when my friend Krista, let me just close the door. The dog's barking.
You're totally fine. So,
thank you. So my friend Krista was like, who I had met at this wedding. She's like, oh my gosh, I have to introduce you to my boss. Blah blah blah. So they were like, thought it was hilarious that I was an anarchist. Like they had never even heard of it. And here I am, like literally, almost literally a soccer mom. It's like a swimming mom or whatever. And and then I was like, I'm totally serious though. Like really, there's no need. Then they thought it was funny that I was, the more serious I was, the more I argued about it, the funnier they thought it was. They put me on the air and
was it because that they just pictured you as this person that wanted to like run around and burn shit down and like the Summer of Love peaceful protest type thing?
This is actually what the guy said, the program director. He said why people like it, because this was a really big station. Like it was used to get a lot of awards. This guy was a real pro. And I realized when I lost the job, it had been family run for like decades, and they sold it to like a financial investor. So that was really why he was good, and he really just meant to be good. He didn't have an agenda. He used to laugh. I was like, someday, Dianne Feinstein's going to call you and tell you to take me off the air. And he said, oh, that would be awesome. I was like, okay.
Hell yeah.
And then one time, that tune changed. He was like, if that happens, I will have to actually take you off the air. I was like, okay. He didn't say, he used a different example, but he said, like, if you get canceled, I will have to cancel you, not because I want to, but because you will not be a viable host. So watch what you say on Twitter or whatever, if you want to be commercially viable. And I did a little bit. But he said what it was that here you are, like you're, the guy's coming home from work and his wife's in the kitchen, like watching his kids and making him dinner, whatever. And you're her, and you're like spewing all these like big ideas, unique ideas, things he'd never heard before. And then he comes home and he tells his family about it. He said, that's what I want out of you. And I used to be very nervous, so I wasn't as humorous and fun.
It's our turn. You're good. I still get nervous. So, and it really doesn't matter like the guest, because it could be like somebody fucking famous. Sorry for cussing. I know you're on YouTube.
I do a lot. I use a lot of vulgarity. I never cuss or swear, but I use a lot of vulgarity.
Same.
Put that in your noggin.
Same. That's the way I see it as well. And I totally forgot where I was going with that. But where I was
You could
going
be with a famous
is,
person. Yep. Mhm.
yeah, and it doesn't phase me at all. And it's like, but if it's, I don't know, it's just randomly, I'll just be like nervous jitters before a show. And I'm like, where the hell did this come from? And then I'm like taking like a half hour trying to work out the nerves before I'm finally able to pay attention to the conversation. It happened to me like a couple weeks ago. And I was just like, why am I focused on why I'm nervous? I'm not listening to what my guest is saying. This
Yeah,
sucks.
right. No, it's like the amygdala or something kicks in. I had probably 400 or 500 shows, just guessing, on the radio, and I was sick to my stomach until the very last one. Every
Oh
single
man.
time. Yeah.
And
So
was it
when they
because you
told me I
knew
was
it
off
was
the
the
air,
last one?
no, I was every single one. I was sick every single one. And so when they told me I was off the air, like I wasn't like, oh, I kind of felt like I had an obligation to he asked me to be on the radio, and I thought, well, I know a lot about like liberty and the philosophy behind it, and economics and morality and politics. Like I kind of have an obligation to take this opportunity. But when he told me I couldn't do it anymore, it was like they were going to take the show off the air. I wasn't like, man, I'm going to miss it. I was bummed because I had gotten pretty good at it, and I really liked the callers because you would hear people who were completely contrary to the narrative. So like it was Atlanta's half black, and they would call and say stuff that they're stereotyped out of. Like, so people act when you watch the mainstream or you listen to the liberals or whatever, they'll tell you like they all talk like this. Tons of them liked Trump, for example. Plenty of them
Oh
didn't
yeah.
like Obama, even though they were liberal. Everybody hated reparations, even though they hated me too, but they were just, you know what I mean? They didn't like it for a variety of reasons, which they explained. So
And so you
I
were
like
at the
that,
radio
but I was
station
sick about it. Yeah.
and before you quit, that's when the
I
Boston
didn't
bombing
quit.
happened? Or not quit, but before your last
Yes.
show.
They took
Before
the
you
Monica Perez show off the air, is how I put it.
Okay. And well, let's talk about that. Was it because you got too controversial?
Oh my gosh, it's so funny. I had a new the program director was the program director, but I had a new like executive producer or something, and he loved the show. And he was like, "You need to just let your hair down. Like, you need to not worry so much about what you say." And I'm like, I think you're wrong about that. I think I need to worry about what I say. I mean, I'm not sure you really know what it would be like if I didn't worry about what I said. And I think on my last show, I think before they took me off the air, first of all, I played clips from this was in February 2020. And Atlanta is where the CDC is. So I was playing clips from Event 201, and it was like War of the Worlds. People in the hallway were like, "What the hell are you talking about? 6 million people are dead. What?" And I had to stop playing the clips because it was really like War of the Worlds. I'm like, except for unlike War of the Worlds, this is actually going to happen, because I knew about it. And
That is awesome.
yeah, well, except for what I was always afraid of is if you do that and then you get taken off the air, that's it. So you have to choose wisely your silver bullet. And I forgot actually. I didn't that the only thing that ever got me in trouble was health stuff, because the CDC would call the station, people who worked there, they'd be driving home in their car and they'd be like, "Get her off the air." I remember one time I told people to go see like whatever that Del Bigtree. I didn't even tell anybody to see it. People were calling saying there's an opening of vaccinated or vaxxed or unvaxxed or whatever it was called at the, that old theater. You should tell people to go. And I'm like, well, you tell people to go. It's a call-in show. It's fine. And they were saying like, talking about vaccines. I was like, now that you think about it, why don't I give my kids the chickenpox vaccine? Like, who cares about chickenpox? That was the first time I ever got like massive amounts of calls taking me off the air. So it could have been that. I was super down on Stacey Abrams. I was big into voting integrity. Epstein was, a subject of conversation. But I think it would be the voting because this was 2020. So it would have been the voting integrity and COVID, I think. But I also like just threw out there 9/11 was an inside job. I didn't even say Israel did 9/11 because this was Rush Limbaugh's station. So saying that would have been not good at all. But I just said it was an inside job. I was like, Dick Cheney did it. I mean, and but whatever. It was just the craziest show. I was like, sure, I'll let my hair down. And that was it.
That is awesome. So
yeah.
So what happened with the Boston bombing that was an oh shit moment for you?
Okay, so here was the thing with that one. I was always nervous, and I was the big thing that made me nervous was that everybody on that station seemed to me read the Wall Street Journal or listened to Rush. I would listen to a lot of the radio. I hate politics and news and whatever, but I have to listen to it to figure out how to do it. So I would hear Sean Hannity following Rush Limbaugh, playing the same clips, saying the same shit. I was like, that guy should not have a job. And then other people on the show who were local hosts, you could just tell they're reading the Wall Street Journal and just regurgitating it. And I was the only one who even let in Ron Paul callers. They would screen the calls. I shouldn't say I was the only one. I don't want to disparage anybody who was on that station. Everyone was very nice to me. I think I was the novelty act, though. I have to say, I think they were making fun of me behind my back. I don't really care. Not everybody, just a couple, whatever. I don't want to shit talk. It was a very nice experience. I love those people. But, just generally speaking.
It's fine. You can shit talk. It's fun.
I don't know, but I don't like
I was the novelty show on the first station that I was on. And I think it's okay to say that out loud because I believe it was so. I was the only conspiracy show on a freaking
that is true. But I don't want to be uncharitable that people had ill will in their hearts or, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't know what's in their hearts. And I didn't really hear what they were saying a little bit, but so, but I really wasn't a real conspiracy person, actually. Like, I knew government was ridiculous, but I did not know that 9/11 was an inside job at that time. Like, people who did know would call in the show and say, I can't believe you don't know 9/11 is an inside job. And I would say this. It's not that I don't believe they could do it. It's just I don't believe they would do it. That was what I thought. So I didn't really look into it, I guess. But my big problem with the show is that because the entire station was 100% straight Fox News or whatever, every single caller, every listener would have a whole week's worth of, sound bites in their head. And I would come out and say, Sergeant Bergdahl got kidnapped on purpose or something. And there you go. So I would say that stuff, and I would get people like, I remember Obama did this Iran deal, the thing that Trump threw in the garbage. I didn't like Obama. I don't like war. I don't believe in any of this. I don't believe any of that stuff's real anyway. However, I was like, look, this is news. Let me read the thing and see what it says. So I'm reading the thing, figuring out, and I go to people like, I think if you're really worried about Iran having nukes, I don't think they're going to have nuclear weapons in the next 10 years, which is what this thing says it's doing. I said, I think it will do that. I don't think they're going to have nuclear weapons the next 10 years anyway, but I think this will do that. I had people calling in constantly the whole entire day telling me I was wrong about the whole thing. I was reading passages in the thing and they were arguing with me that that's not what's in the thing. I'm like holding up the paper. So this was the kind of pushback I had. So for me to want to talk about anything, I had to not only know everything that I knew, but know everything they were going to say. It was really burdensome. I would start on Thursday just to study for Saturday's show.
Do you think that's why Alex Jones gets so worked up all the time? Because I'm holding the fucking paper right here. I got the documents.
Yes, people don't want to believe it, and it is good to have the documents and to be able to look at them. But they don't believe you. I don't know if they don't believe you or they don't want to hear it. I mean, because even if you were sitting with somebody and you had the documents, they wouldn't look at it. Like I think I remember numerous times being like, look, they don't want to look. So
I think we all dealt with that during the pandemic because everybody has a friend and family member that they tried to show information to that just refused to even look at it.
Yeah, I don't believe it. Yeah, it can't be true. Tucker Carlson, well, I know steel melts in an open air flame because it happened. It's like, no, it didn't. So, but this time, but a big problem was I also wanted it to be interesting. So I would have to pick a subject, but you don't get callers if you pick your own subject. You only get callers when they think they know what they're talking about. So you kind of have to either talk about what everybody else was talking about or be able to fill 3 hours without a single call, which I could do. But it was a lot of work. So it was very hard to pick a topic. And if I picked one and I did the work, I was going to do it. So happened to be this night I was filling in during prime time. So I had a weeknight show, which was probably 10 or 15 times what I normally had as listeners, like hundreds of thousands of listeners. And
this is awesome.
yeah, it was. And I was like, oh my gosh, this Boston Marathon bombing thing, I better figure out what happened because people are going to ask me questions about it. So I figured out what happened. And I was like,
Yes.
oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe what happened. And my producer, my good friend who had met at the wedding, who got me the job, she said, you can't say that. People are going to lose their head. And like the only rule of radio is people are not supposed to go running and screaming out of the room because then they're not listening to the radio. And I was like, I know, but it's true. She's like, you don't know that's true. I'm like, I do know that's true. So I said, well, that's fine. I don't mind not saying it, but then I can't go on the air because I have nothing else to say. And she said, well, talk about this, talk about that. I said, no, you don't understand. Like it takes me all day to figure out what really, I have nothing, I cannot do it. So she got the program director on the phone and he said to me, if you can separate out what you know from what you think and make that clear to people, then you say whatever you want. And I had figured out the Boston Marathon bombing because I stayed up like all night. Alex Jones ripped me off this time. I collected all these pictures of Tamerlan Tsarnaev from his boxing days, and I compared it with the Naked Man. I don't know if you remember, a Naked Man was arrested, and it was broadcast on CNN, so we had the clip. Of course, they give us those clips, I think, sometimes. On purpose.
The CIA has them ready to go before the event even happens.
Yeah, like the S Hook thing. The guy was laughing and then crying. I was like, well,
I'll let you get back to this, but what do you think about this Tyler kid?
I don't even pay attention to these things anymore. I mean, that was clearly either a sniper or it was totally fake. Like it's like either a blood pack or a sniper. I think
this kid needs to be released if he even is real.
Yeah, I people are saying that they don't think but I really can't pay. Ever since February 14th, 2018, the Parkland thing, the Sheriff Israel thing with the that's the day they closed the internet and you really couldn't do a lot of research after that. They just stopped it. Like prior to that day, I could
Wait, what is this?
I just remember it distinctly, and that's why I'm, 100% positive it's that day. So February 14th, 2018 is when the Parkland shooting thing happened in that Marjorie high school.
Right.
So prior to that, I could always figure out everything from the internet. Like if you spent enough hours, you could figure it out. You could find the video live leak or, you could just find it.
Right.
On that day, the entire like YouTube suggested videos was like CNN, Fox, it's like, oh, there's nothing. There should be at least 1,000 uploads from the kids in that school. And
so that's when they stuck the knife in us. That
was the day they closed the internet. And then they took my website down in August. And I remember thinking how stupid I was to not realize that the hammer was coming down.
See, and I didn't really get it either until recently because I was trying to dig up information on this Vegas thing that happened not that long ago. If you remember, there was the bombing supposedly in the Tesla, and there was a Tesla that parked. Well, I've been to that fucking hotel and I know there's cameras everywhere. And like every 3 feet, right where that happened. Yeah. And we're only getting like 1 and 2 angles from this thing. And I was digging hard and I still could only find the 1 and 2 angles that we're allowed to see.
Right. And that's instantaneous lockdown. Like that's what happened. That's what happened on that, so I remember that day because every Saturday I had to do a show. So every Saturday I was trying to prove whatever. That's how come I knew in June 2015 that Trump was not real, that he was supported by the establishment, because there was a psyop that launched his campaign, validated his controversial speech, and then was totally misrepresented by the media to the point where people were killed to cover it up. It was the Kate Steinle thing. I should revisit that. It was very interesting. But that's why in June 2015, I was like, oh, Trump's the guy, because I mean, I didn't know if he was going to win, but he was definitely meant to be the Republican candidate because of that psyop that was clearly not being properly represented, which they never would do for an outside guy. So I would always follow those things. And I remember that. And so when the Boston Marathon bombing happened, and I had this big show, I was so well prepared. I was absolutely not going to come out and do the show if I couldn't say that thing. So what I had discovered, and what I discovered was, I mean, that Tamerlan Tsarnaev was a CIA agent, and his little brother was a dental student. That was really fucked up. That the cops killed him. His brother didn't run over him. Then they killed the brother, who I think they say the brother's still in jail, but he was definitely dead. Like, I saw a picture of him as soon as they got him from the boat. It's like, that guy's dead, and you will never see him alive again. I could go on. There's so many stories about the bus, but I'm not going to tell you everything. But
I love it. And I love it coming from you too, because you had so many people listening to you. So how are you able to differentiate?
Yes.
How are you able to differentiate fact and this is my opinion? Was it easy to do?
Right. Yeah, because I had so much documented evidence. So I had it. So there was an article in the Boston Globe, I think it was, that interviewed I think it was a gas station owner or the worker there, an Arab looking guy, Middle Eastern looking guy, who was saying that he saw whatever this carjacking thing was. I don't know if you remember that detail about the Boston Marathon. Supposedly they carjacked somebody at a gas station, and this guy said he kind of thought the guy was joking. It was like a skinny white guy, maybe gay, who came in and said, "Oh, I just got carjacked." Well, not that long later, John Williams or whatever, he was like a PR guy for the FBI. I think he works for the New York City cops again now, but he was on CBS at the time. I forget his name, but he had an exclusive with Danny, the Chinese guy who was carjacked. And I'm like, it definitely wasn't a Chinese guy. It was this. I have the video of the guy being interviewed on the day saying what the carjacking victim looked like in his gas station. So there was tons of things like that. Oh my gosh, the Collier Donahue, the two cops who were shot. Sean Collier was killed on I think on the MIT campus, and Donahue was supposedly shot in Watertown. That's not how that happened. I mean, I would just read. It was just that the articles kept changing, and I had all the articles. So I kept looking. This is how naive I was. I kept looking in the Boston Globe for retractions and corrections. I was like, that's not what happened. And I would look and be like, you need to fix the story. You need to say that it didn't happen that way. And eventually I was like, oh.
Yeah,
they don't care that it didn't happen that way.
They were just changing it in real time, because at that point, the repeal of the Smith-Monks Act that Obama had probably.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, 2012. That's right. That was 2012. That's right. Yeah, because I covered that at the time too. But yeah, they were obviously just, typing out the memos that they get. You see those funny reels of like anthrax, 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 our democracy, our democracy. Did you ever see the reels like James Corbett made one, and Conan O'Brien made one? Like, they're literally reading the same memo. And that's the way it was. Everybody got on the same page, and they did not acknowledge what were previous, because they weren't mistakes. And so it was a very complicated story, but it was clear to me that guy, the naked man was Tsarnaev, and there were just so many details. I just beat the shit out of that story. But I knew right then that it was a psyop, that they knew these guys, like when they're like, well, we're looking for two men. I'm like, those two men are on your terrorist watch list. They're the closest address to that event. Like, you just look at your terrorist watch list, it's the top 2 guys in geographical, order. And they were only on the terrorist watch list because the little brother I feel bad for. I don't know if he had anything to do with it at all, except for he went with his big brother. But the big brother was a CIA agent, operative, whatever. His job was to go get like to radicalize imams and pay them off and stuff in Central Asia to, I don't know what, because it's a rising oil. I don't know. But what happened was Putin or whatever, Russia said, hey, we know all about your CIA guy in Chechnya trying to rile people up. Get him out of there. He's been made. So he was a terrorist, but he was our terrorist against them. And that's why he was there. And they completely turned on him. But anyway, so I realized
see how that would be a red pilling moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely see how that would be a red pilling moment. Were you aware of crisis actors during that time?
Not at all. So I will just say, to put a bow on it, when I realized that they did do that, and I realized that they would do that, then I realized they did 9/11. Like right away, the scales just came off my eyes. I was like, oh, well, then it's all true. And what I had said as a libertarian and a narco-capitalist was that the government, we're at such odds with the government, we have such a conflict of interest depending on our security from the people who benefit from our insecurity, that theoretically these things should be happening. So I had already known that. And I would warn people, it's only a matter of time. And then when I saw they were happening, I was like, oh, this is theoretically necessary. Like, this is what you would expect to happen when you pay people to protect you and they have the power to put you in danger instead. Like, that's what you would expect. So that I did not think at all about crisis actors, or maybe I would have not even believed 9/11 was an inside job, because 9/11, obviously people died. A lot of people died. I think people are still dying. Yeah.
That's the misconception that people will take on false flags. And I've actually had some people yell at me and is like, what? So you don't think people died? And I'm like, no, they have no problem killing people.
Yeah.
That's not really what a false
danger.
flag is.
That's the danger to us. They are the terrorists. We are under
yes.
threat of terrorism because of them.
Yes, it's our own people. I mean, I'm sure you're aware of what Operation Northwoods was and what happened to JFK when he didn't want to go along with that. And that wasn't the only thing that took him out, but that was a major thing.
I think he knew what the CIA was up to in Africa and stuff. I think that's what really, if you go back and listen to his last speech, that's a clue, I think. But anyway.
Yeah.
Well, there's a movie. God.
I believe that there is so many different things. And have you talked to Corey Hughes before?
No, but I've heard him many times.
Yes.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, Demona and all of that. There was I think it was one of those guys, E. Howard Hunt or whatever, on his deathbed said, like, or supposedly James, his mother would call him Jesus Angleton, but I think he probably called himself James Jesus Angleton. But he, one of them said at his deathbed that the closest thing to the truth about how JFK happened was a kind of B movie with Peter Lawford, his brother-in-law, called Executive Action. So you might want to watch that just for the tactics, not necessarily who's ultimately responsible.
Right.
But yeah, that was a good one. So
what was it called? Executive what?
Executive Action.
Okay. Awesome. I'll check that out.
Yeah, it's good. And it's very easy to watch. But so yeah, I think now that we know that they do that stuff. So yes, they do kill people all the time. And that is the danger. And but when you say this didn't happen this way, people act like you're supporting terrorists or whatever. It's like, no, I want the real, or you're being disloyal to the victims. It's like, no, I want the actual murderers to be brought to justice. I'm the one who, it's actually like, I think it's a spiritual work of mercy or whatever, beatitudes and whatever. Like, I hunger and thirst for justice sake. That's, and you're satisfied.
Right. And this is the thing that I've come across with trying to dig into certain things too, is like, don't talk to those family members because that's disrespectful to them. And when I was actually digging in and trying to do investigate, now I just podcast and I get my information from people that actually do that stuff. But it was like, I don't find that disrespectful at all, because if somebody in my family or I was killed in an unwrongfully way and their narrative that was put out there is completely false, I don't want that to just be the narrative that's out there. I would hope that somebody would be asking questions. Like, difficult questions need to be asked sometimes, whether it hurts people's feelings or not.
There was a 9/11 widow who made some pretty aggressive speeches in Congress and stuff. She was pretty active in trying to find the real truth about 9/11. She wasn't satisfied with the 9/11 Commission report. And I stumbled upon this information because I don't believe the Boeing stuff. I don't like I about 7 years ago I saw an article like about air travel, and I was like, "Oh, they're going to try to make it seem unsafe," because I used to be worried about, I had little kids and I was worried about flying, and I looked into the safety of air travel. US run commercial jets are way safer than getting in the car. 100 way safer. There's basically no fatalities in like what this new stuff with the, Alaska Air and all that. I'm not counting that. But before that, it was 15 years before that. And the ones that happened during those 15 years were bullshit too. And this is the first one during that time period. So I would say they have a perfect record of like 20 years, perfect record of no fatalities. The first one was a commercial jet going to Buffalo on the birthday with this woman in it. It was her birthday. She was the 9/11 widow that was pretty mouthy. And I think they brought that thing down to haystack her.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. You know what? On a side tangent to that, or is it okay?
I'm just saying that the people who are in the families and stuff, they would make very powerful advocates. So it's important never to access those people like that. It's the worst thing. It has to be a taboo to address it to anyone who has a real interest, in my opinion.
That would definitely make sense. And just a side note that I wanted to bring up about the 9/11 and people being mouthy. I used to live in a place called Forest Meadows, California, and it's a gated community. And about 3 doors down from me, there was a guy that wrote a book. And one day, the cops came and were asking like, "Hey, did you guys hear any gunshots or anything like that?" The kids didn't go to school for a while, and what had happened was they were executed. The son,
This
the
isn't
daughter,
Philip Marshall.
the son, the daughter.
Who was it? Philip Marshall?
Yeah.
Who wrote Bamboozled?
Yeah. He lived like 2-3 doors down from me, and yeah, that happened.
They said he did it. That he shot his own fucking dog.
Yeah, that's what they told us. And then the sheriffs came and didn't buy it. And yeah, there was a lot of weird shit that happened in that whole thing. And then what had happened like a week later, the sheriff in Calaveras County was like, he was almost going rogue on this shit. And he said, "Hey, we're going to be doing some tests in a few houses around the area. And we want you guys to let us know if you hear gunshots." And
wow. Interesting.
Oh, yeah.
So we have to talk about this. Hold on. So I have to say, I believe I've got it handy. I think it's definitely right over here. I really want to get it for you. I read that book, and it said something about like who flew the planes, wherever. He didn't really get the story right, and he had some military intelligence background, if I recall correctly, or I don't know exactly, but I remember I read the book and I was totally convinced by it, and I was like, 9/11 was definitely an inside job. And then later, when I learned more about 9/11, I was like, that guy wasn't actually correct. But he still opened my eyes to it, and I thought either I assumed or found out he had a little bit of that intelligence, something or other. But just because you were in on it at one point, JFK, Reagan, Nixon, I mean, those guys all have, dipped a toe or whatever. You're probably more likely to get taken out. So,
especially if you're trying to. Especially if you're trying to cash in on it, I think is the whole thing is like, I feel like he was probably just gatekeeping you know,
Mhm.
putting a little bit of truth out there, enough to keep
Yeah.
people talking, but it's a hot subject. And why in the hell not make a few dollars on it using my
Yeah.
background?
And they did not like that. But here's the thing, you're making an excellent point. I did not know that about the sheriffs. Ban is saying, you know, about the just mentioning some protests in Portland or whatever. Right now, we've got I don't know if you I don't even get into it, but um there are protests in Portland right now, like ICE protests and whatever. And um that combined with uh Trump's like crime stuff, he's sending troops into the cities in violation of posse comitatus. This was actually a ruling in LA, was that it was in violation of posse comitatus. It's highly incrementalist in that they're doing it, and it's not Trump, like it's whoever, you know, whatever blob
Right.
of control Trump represents. But what they're
Parasitic
doing,
elite.
yeah, but I feel like it kind of feels like there's two sides sometimes. Like at one
I
level,
think
there are
there's
two
more.
sides. Yeah, okay.
I think there's battling, there's high ups battling for power. Like if you would just picture like a round table, and it's like it's my turn to reign this time, and I feel like they all want the same goal, but they want
Yeah.
that top seat when that goal takes place.
Well, and they certainly, yes, they do all have that, the goal to consolidate power. That's a good point. So, and that's exactly what this is about, and it relates to your story a little bit. So they're using ICE, which is a federal thing. They're using federal property, federal agents in DC. It's not a federal issue, but it's a federal piece of territory. Like they're trying to justify it in all different ways. They're trying to get that wedge in there to, you know, crack open the door. Because, and I said this from ever since defund the police, like they're a go on a national police force. And what I think they're actually probably going to do, what they're probably really working on, is not so much a national police force in name as such a modular, interconnected um, police entity that. So one of the things that came out of the Bishop thing on July 13th, 2024 was, we're going to have Secret Service in every town, always interoperating with the police there in case there's ever something like this. And Bishop is a very small town. So if you're going to talk about something that level, to have a constant Secret Service, Capitol Police has outposts and everything. So what I think they're going to do is, rather than say you can't have your police anymore, it's just totally interoperable, which is one of the things I said about Sheriff Israel, which is the first time I got a strike on YouTube for bullying an elected official was Sheriff Israel, because he was part of the International Brotherhood of Police. And I was like, there should not have any higher loyalty than your elected people. So, but what's wrong with that? What is wrong with violating posse comitatus in the service of that's wrong anyway, but to have a national police force, and it's exactly what you're talking about. You, like Denny Hestert was importing kids to diddle, if I am not mistaken, and he was the Speaker of the House, and the FBI was watching his apartment, and it was the cops. Like, people in the neighborhood were calling the cops, and it's the cops who shut it down. And in your case, the sheriff is the only one who cared about this guy. If you don't have, we have separation of powers on the national level, and like the three parts of the government, but also local, state. We have subsidiarity is a form of separation of powers. And who watches the watchers? Other watchers. So I'm very concerned about this. And that is a perfect example of why you need to have local people on the ground who are answerable to you, who might have a soul, who you might be able to look in the eye once in a while, who want to do their job. And we had a good sheriff here in California, and boy, he started looking into corruption, and man, they ran him out of town on a rail, destroyed his life, destroyed his career. The judges wouldn't let him bring suit, even though he had him dead to rights. I'm blacklisting him for no good grounds. Yeah, really messed up. So it is important. We're losing it, but it isn't, because they probably didn't win. Did they bring justice for Philip Marshall?
No, absolutely not. And and he had skin in the game. A lot of the people, it's a small neighborhood. It's a small area, right? So it's like one high school for like 4 cities, not even cities, 4 towns.
Yeah, right.
And so everybody knows everybody. You know, the sheriff's
Mhm.
had kids that went to school with his kids, type of a thing. You know, it's like, don't
Yeah.
fuck with us. Like, that's why we are the way that we were. I don't live there anymore.
Right.
And but there was a point that I wanted to make, and of course it
Sorry.
slipped my mind because I'm interviewing you, but that's fine.
Well, I can't, I'll just keep going and going. We were talking about plane crashes in Buffalo and executive action and
Oh, I'm glad that you did bring up
sheriff.
the plane crashes because Sam Tripoli, he's the host of a conspiracy show. I don't know if you know who he is. Yes, you do. Of course, you
Of
know who
course,
Sam
I've been on this
Tripoli is.
show many times, and
That's
I've been
right,
on
you
the
have.
conspiracy couch or whatever with Brian Cullen.
Awesome. So, they don't do that together anymore. I'm bummed, but he does. Sam does it with somebody else, and it's just as good. It's just a little bit different. But what
Well,
he's
Brian
been
would definitely take. I think like he would always defend the. I'm sure they didn't really do that. It's like I have the document right here. You're like,
right.
come on. I'm like, I could go down there right now, right around the corner.
Oh man, yeah. And he had on memory hold one time to talk about Pizzagate, and I was like, dude, why didn't you like go heavy into it? Like you
Yeah.
had the chance. And he was like, I don't know, man. I just didn't really feel. I was like, oh man, you dropped the ball on that one. But Brian Callen ended up quitting the show. So
Oh, I
yeah, he
thought it
does
was
it.
good. I thought it was good to have that little like.
Well, he does it with Dylan now, and they still have that same back and forth banter.
Oh,
And
aw,
I
stepping
actually
stone. I
like
hope not.
I actually like it better because Dylan doesn't talk down to Sam um the way
Oh
that
wait,
Brian
Sam does
used
it
to.
with Tim Dillon.
No, not Tim Dillon. It's a
Oh,
guy named Dylan.
oh, okay. I was like, wow, that's awesome. That
No,
would be
it's
a great show.
oh man, that would be amazing.
That would be an amazing show. I was like, how did I not know about this?
No, it's another
Oh yeah,
comedian
no, I'm
named
sure it's
Dylan.
great. They
It is
should.
great.
Maybe I'll go on it. Pick it. Okay.
The point that I was gonna get to, or what I wanted to is Sam lately has been saying he has a theory that they just don't want people to fly because they're trying to get us used to these 15-minute cities. And on top of that, what you were just saying, what's taking place now is something that I think is them getting us used to a police state and used to having troops on the ground. And I think that with ICE and then bringing these protests, an excuse to bring in the military. And it was so crazy to me that us as truthers and conspiracy theorists, when everybody was touting out, oh, trust the plan, military is the only way. And it's like, wait, we're cheering to have military take over. Wait, that doesn't make any sense. You guys want martial law to happen? And don't get me wrong, I got sucked up into that stuff as well. But I just
It's
that's
the
what we're
cult of
seeing right now.
personality because you trust Trump, but
And the
the
pendulum has swung
right
so far back to
you
the right
you're
that
gonna
it's
have
now I
Newsom
can't talk to the
though.
people on
Yeah.
the right anymore.
No, I
It's
know
like,
it makes
wait,
you lose hope. This is why I'm annoyed at the No Kings thing because they talk about democracy and constitutional rights and stuff. I'm like, those are two totally different things. If you are advocating democracy, then we are not having constitutional rights. Those are totally different things. So, um, so you're going. We need, even if you like the guy, even if it's Thomas Jefferson or whatever, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights is actually really good. Like, I like the Articles of Confederation, and as Lysander Spooner would say, be it one thing or another, the Constitution has led us to where we are. But I think that is the thin parchment line between humanity and world tyranny. Because once we lose the Second Amendment, we are going, and this National Guard thing, people don't read the whole Second Amendment. And if you read, it's like you have to choose which side of the Second Amendment you like. The militia is necessary for a free state. If the president is going to control, which it is the National Guard, so I guess the militia's over, but just theoretically, like, it's good to remember the states had their own armies and they were for the protection of the state. And that's what you need. So we need the Constitution, we need the constitutional rights. Otherwise, just because you like the guy in charge this time, he is going to pave the way for the next guy who you don't like. And it's keeps going back and forth.
It
Someone
is.
just reminded me of my ping pong politics thing. It just goes back and forth. And I mean, we need to have a longer lifespan so people can remember this stuff.
Dang it. It escaped me right before I was going to say it again. Okay.
You gotta write it
The
down.
pendulum
You gotta take
swinging.
your notes. I
I
always
know,
write my
right?
notes.
Well, I was just about to talk, and then you finished your point, and then
Ah.
my brain was like, "Oh,
Well,
look,
the
a butterfly."
15-minute cities. Yes, the interoperable. 15-minute cities, airplanes, electric airplanes. You can't even talk to the right. It's taken over now. Cult of personality.
Yep. Nope.
Sorry,
I'm
honey.
gonna. You're totally good. I'm just gonna pivot.
It's my fault.
It is not your fault. Nothing is ever anybody's fault but the person that,
Okay.
stifles their own self.
Okay.
So, um, what do you think about these King protests? Because I think that's what I wanted to ask you. Thank you. It just finally came back to me. We need to pay attention to how the Constitution is worded and words that are used, because here is something that I see happening, and I'm glad that I'm not the only one, because somebody was like, you need to listen to the new No Agenda show. And so I went and listened to it, because I've been saying, they're saying things not exactly the way that it is. They're saying free speech and freedom of speech, and those are two totally different things in the way that they're saying, oh, our free speech is being attacked. And we need to talk about the difference. Is there a difference between freedom of speech or free speech? Are those two different things, or are they not? Because when they said, oh, you guys are mandated, now you got to go get the vaccine, people are like, oh, we have to do it. It's law. No, it's not law. It's a mandate. So we need to be very careful with these words, because that's exactly how they will strip away our rights. Is we will get tricked into letting them take them from us.
Right. I saw one of the protest signs. It was on Facebook. Somebody who used to follow me, I guess, from the WSB days. And Ben is saying, like, I finally have something in common with these protesters. And I feel the same way, but like they're really focusing on the wrong thing. And they're 100%, they're funded by like 100 different organizations, all of which are like a Soros thing. I mean, he's just the embodiment of a blob as well. But so when
Are
so
they
what the
getting
guy said,
violent though? Like,
are they?
one thing I've noticed about
Yeah.
these ones, and I haven't looked in the past day or two, but like, if I'm not mistaken, there's not pallets of bricks laid out waiting for these people.
Right. I just was reading about that. I think I actually wrote it down. But what this guy said on Facebook was, his sign said, bring back due process. And I was like, yes. And that guy was a libertarian. We lost that during COVID. We gave up due process, which is all you've got. Due process is all you've got. That's why when they say, like terrorists don't have the same rights, and do the guys that were blowing up without any freaking process in the Caribbean have rights? It's like if you don't have due process, they get to murder you at will. Due process is the most important thing, unless we have real anarcho-capitalism, in which case the whole system would be structured very, very differently. But right now, our only protection is the process. So I will
And
tell
it's
you,
getting
yeah,
hard to trust that too. It's getting really hard to trust that process.
right.
And
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how do you feel about the Alex Jones case, where he was the Schmandy Schmuck thing?
With all the like a trillion saws, he didn't defend himself. So
Not
what
at
is that?
all. I don't understand this whole thing, because to me, there wasn't a case. If he would have just stood on freedom of speech, then that's that. There is no
I believe
case. I
he did
don't.
not mount a defense. I think he did not show up. Right?
No, he did show up, because there was definitely. I think the
He
whole
showed
thing
up for
was
the sentencing, but I
a
don't think
dog and pony show, because they were like, because there was a clip of him, and he was like, "Oh, you mean like the Clintons with the Epstein files?" And it was like, "Oh, got him moment." And I think that that's all these are, is got him moments. But I think that that whole case was to try to scare people that are out there behind
oh, yeah.
microphones into
That's when I got
speaking.
my website taken down, was because of something was the same thing that got him in trouble. I put up pictures of Noah Posner like being held up by a woman in Pakistan, saying that kid got killed in her school, and the BBC was reporting it as a kid with a different name. I put that up on my website, and my entire website, which I had a business plan I was paying for at WordPress, they took everything, and I barely escaped with like retrieving my text. With the Alex Jones thing, I didn't follow it that closely. I think he's, fake, and his wheels might be shooting off. He might even basically not know that he's super fake, because people do know him and say like, I don't think so. But so I didn't follow the blow by blow. I do believe when I did plug in to see why he didn't just make some simple argument like you're saying, and on that day he wasn't there, or for that phase of the trial he just wasn't there. In my opinion, he abdicated. But
And
I would have to go back. Yeah.
And it's also very odd that he's never been like clingy to the left or the right, but for some reason he's like all in on Trump. And if I'm not mistaken, that's the reason why Owen left the show. And so it's like, is this even the same Alex Jones? Like, is he compromised? And, because I do feel that he did have good intentions at one point.
Well, he certainly had good information, but it's like Tucker Carlson. I mean, they're there for one reason. What is the reason? Well, you'll find out eventually. Is it to say, take the vax already? Or is it to say, Trump is real? Like, what is it for? They have unlimited resources. They can create a person for every single, if they can get somebody to be really trusted, you can hang on to that until you really need to bring it home. So you've got warp speed. It's just a few silver bullets they use, for one silver bullet for each person. But I see. Yeah, go ahead.
When the people need a hero, we will provide them with one.
Yeah, or a villain, I guess.
What
is that from? Is that V?
It's like who is like the most revered Freemason? And
Pike?
Yes, Pike wrote that.
Very nice. Okay, so I just read this in the Wall Street Journal today. It said Trump was allowed to send the National Guard into Portland, and the judges there was two against one. The judges said protesters have attempted to burn the building down, place chains on the doors, breach the front door, break the glass on the front door, thrown rocks, sticks, mortar, launched M80 fireworks at federal officers, assaulted federal officers, shined lasers at officers' eyes, and doxed federal officers. I'm not saying whether that's true or not, but that's what they are saying happened. So in answer to your question, maybe they are a little bit, but I had a really interesting insight that I will give you if you want.
Yeah,
every once in a while I have an interesting insight when I read the news, and that's the only time I want to share my story. So here, you can have it first. So there's this thing called Operation Inflation, where they give these protesters inflatable costumes. So you've got Barney there. Are you aware of this?
No.
They're wearing inflatable Halloween costumes. It's this. I'm just reading this in the journal. I'm not. It could be a total lie, but I'm telling you, it's been in the journal the last couple of days. And I'm thinking, is that kind of like a Clown Without Pity, or, the Ghostbusters Stay Puft Marshmallow Man? Are you like just trying to tap into the deepest, most safest place and then have it come out with a giant knife at some point? But I found what it was. It's so the other judge in this case said, given Portland protesters' well-known penchant for wearing chicken suits, inflatable frog costumes, or nothing at all when expressing their disagreement with the methods employed by ICE, observers may be tempted to view the majority's ruling, which is what I just read you, which accepts the government's characterization of Portland as a war zone, as merely absurd. So he's saying, look,
so you get
it's the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. He couldn't possibly throw an M80. Like, it's very clever. So then I started looking like, who's behind this? And it was 100 organizations. Why are unions funding something that's keeping ICE from throwing out $10 an hour, what the liberals would call slave labor? Why are the liberals and the unions uniting to keep $10 an hour workers in this country? I'm not saying that we should or shouldn't, but it's not. What you see is what you get.
It is to do exactly what it's doing, and that is to create chaos and destabilization, and to keep the focus on each other, and to give us a boogeyman to fight. And right now, this whole ICE thing, I believe, is just a boogeyman for us to fight. Yes, real things are happening. People are truly being deported. But if I'm being given correct information, the information I'm being given is Trump needs to step it up if he wants to be able to beat what Obama did.
So, yes. And here in LA, the original thing that launched it all, I mean, there were more reporters than federal agents or protesters. My friend works downtown, and she was like, they're all focusing in on like these three, guys in uniform, and mostly everybody else is just sitting around smoking cigarettes.
Yeah, and that's the whole gist of almost everything that we've seen is that's what television does, is it tells a vision, and they're able to manipulate that how they want you to see it. There's a famous meme that's going around, and it's like, this is what the news gives you, and it looks like just a cleavage shot, and then it zooms out and it shows somebody bent over, and it's actually like a plumber with ass crack showing. So it's like they can spin the narrative in any way, shape, or form that they want to, and they do that. I mean, you're well aware of how they use statistics to manipulate data and to scare people into doing things. And it's the same way with these riots or so-called riots, or either way, there could be a huge riot happening and they're saying, oh, these are just peaceful protests. Or there could be a peaceful protest and they're like, this is worse than the bombing of Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, I do. Even when I'm looking at the pictures and they're saying like millions of people, 7 million people around the world, 40,000 people right here on this bridge or whatever. And I'm looking at the picture and I'm thinking, I've been to a lot of concerts. So like I can tell the difference between a stadium show, an arena show, a club show. That ain't a stadium show. Like that's not that. I could get home in less than an hour if I had to battle that crowd. That's not a stadium.
That's not even an NFL game. Come on, guys.
Yeah, exactly. So I think they're exaggerating it right now.
Well, it is to push the narrative and to keep us focused on certain things. And I mean, we're getting here like 15 minutes left in the show. And I did want to like transition. I want to talk more about you, but it is so hard not to get like sucked into these things. And it's so much fun to do that. So I'm totally juiced that we did that. I did want to know like what made you keep going though, after you left the radio show. Why, like, what was it about this to keep getting your voice out there?
I have a few reasons. One is like almost embarrassingly personal, like it's ridiculous, like stupid. But I'm going to tell you because you asked. And it is, so when I was getting married, my uncle, who was a priest, the guy who gave me my first Murray Rothbard book, he was an anarcho-capitalist and definitely like wanted. He was definitely like a priest on the radar. He said to me, look, you're getting married. Keep it interesting. Like one day, don't always tell, it's like one day, privately, whatever, like, just take French lessons or something. And when your husband's coming home, like be on the phone, making a reservation at a French restaurant in French. And he'll be like, I didn't know you spoke French. And it's like, just do stuff like that. And so I think, and I also, so I'm the youngest of 9. My mom, she was old and pretty burnt out. My dad was like a truck driver, had some hard times. It was not an easy life. And they were old. So they were very traditional roles. And I felt like my mother didn't get a lot of respect, didn't have a lot of, standing. And I thought, if you want your kids to respect you. So she buried 2 kids and 2 grandkids. And I thought, you need some control. You need to be respected. So I thought you need to be respected by the community. You need to have some respect by your husband. So I felt, even though it took a lot out of like my time to be able to, perfect the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, which I did. I perfected the grilled cheese. Yeah. So I felt like although, there was a real balance to be struck there, I felt there was some value in it. Um, so there was that, and it still is true. Like my husband, even though he does not listen to the show, he's a normie, and I tell him like, "Don't ever tell anyone you work with that I have this show. Don't
Man,
want anyone to hear it."
that's not
Um,
embarrassing at all. That's actually a beautiful thing. When you said it's kind of personal, I thought it was going to be like an ego thing. It's like, I'll prove these people. But no, that's like awesome. You're taking your grandfather's advice to like keep it interesting.
Yeah, and I felt like it, I always think about like what your what your real duties are, your obligation, and I always ask my husband like, you want me to quit this? Like it takes away resources and time from the family. Probably puts everybody in a little bit of like, I'm waiting for when applications look at your parents' social media or whatever, but so far hasn't been a problem, and my kids always respected it and liked it. And one time, just as a funny thing, I went to my son's concert. He plays the drums, and he got one of the things he did was he switched with the piano player, and the piano player played the drums, and he played the piano. And he came back, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" He said, "Didn't know I could speak French, did you?" And I was like, "That
Oh,
was
that is
funny."
so
So
cool.
he learned how to play the piano and surprised me at the thing. I thought that was really, really cool. And that's a legacy, that's a cool thing. And I liked it. And also, I feel like I'm actually pretty good at the analysis because I'm a math person. I'm not really a newsy person, so I bring like a very different way of thinking about things, and I have absolutely no agenda. I know that I'm not of no agenda, but I have no agenda whatsoever. Only the truth and analysis and trying to be honest. And I feel like every time I thought of not doing it, I thought, like the Fed thing is flooding the zone. Like somebody has got to stand here and say that he didn't get fucking shot in the ear. Like somebody has to be here to say that because he didn't, you know. And I just felt like it's like a little bit of a calling, I guess.
I love it. And I feel that calling too, because if we didn't do this, then who would? And well, I'm sure
Tucker
hope
Carlson.
well, he's a CIA agent. So
That's
like
what I'm
how could
saying. That's the problem.
that is the problem
Yeah.
is they knew that people like us and social media was going to be the new avenue because they created that avenue. And so they had their people ready to step into these spots already. And then what they did is they allowed people like me to just say whatever the hell I wanted for a while. And so that we get
Yes.
people trusting podcasters, and now we trust podcasters. Oh, who's a podcaster? Oh, Tucker Carlson's a podcaster. He's going to tell us exactly what we need to hear. We don't need to listen to the news anymore. Wait a minute. Last I checked, Tucker Carlson used to work for that very news. Last
Mhm.
I checked, Tucker Carlson wears a little red bracelet around his neck, and he gives interviews in a checkerboarded room. So maybe we shouldn't be listening to what he's saying.
Well, my generation, Gen X or whatever, we were the generation. So there's the Fox News watcher, boomers, whatever. And then the Gen X, where we had the raw internet until February 14th, 2018. We had the raw internet. So I think my generation, if they were paying attention, and I was only paying attention because I was on the radio, like I would not have been paying attention. So I don't know how many of them were, but we saw all that truth. And it was, in my opinion, 100% to get us sucked in to thinking it was true. And my kids probably have never seen truth on the internet, like the deeper truth. I'm not saying everything's not true. I'm just saying they couldn't find the
Right.
deep truth about anything with certainty the way I could 15 years ago. But
Well,
yeah, that's what they did.
thankfully we have people like you and like myself that don't really have hooks into us, and we're allowed to say whatever we think and how we see things. I might not be right all the time, but I don't have somebody in my ear telling me what I can and can't say ever. And
Yeah.
so I think that is a beautiful thing. And I think that what does suck, and I admitted this a couple shows ago, is like, you know what? Sometimes I feel like we're being funneled this information for a purpose and for a reason. So even these things that I'm saying, I'm second guessing. Like, why all of a sudden is it okay and cool to be anti-Semitic? I was looking
Oh
into these
my
things a long
gosh!
time ago, and
It's such a
I was
trap.
like,
Absolutely.
wow, a lot of these dots are connecting and leading back to this one place. However, now it's like the cool thing to say. And I'm like, well, if it's the cool thing to say,
You're bad if
why?
you're not saying it. You're bad if you're not saying. So what I think they're doing is it was called the birds of a feather thing when in an article I read, like that was limited hangout, how the NSA created Google. They get like 100 people, 99% of them are feds, and they're all saying the same like super like offensive stuff. And then like you say it, but everybody else was fake. So you're the only one they get. Like that's a classic thing. It's like anti-corruption laws are like that. Like everybody's doing super corrupt things. Then all of a sudden when the music stops, like you're the only person standing in the room. Just like, but everybody was doing it. It's like, well, everybody isn't getting arrested right now. So
Right.
yes, I agree with you there. Like
And
it's
I also
so
feel
crazy.
like maybe I'm just a useful idiot at this point, because this information that I am just so adamant about getting
Yeah.
out to people, I'm questioning where it's coming from and why it's even getting to me. So even though I'm being truthful in my heart and the things that I am
Yeah.
telling you guys, I don't even know if this shit's true anymore. Like,
The
why do they want me to
conspiracy
look at
stuff.
this stuff?
Yeah,
Right?
it's been weaponized, but one thing that really worries me is that what they're really like at a certain level, they want to hear what we're really thinking. Like I've thought of things like they should just do this. And actually that happened with the Boston Marathon bombing. I was like, this guy's supposed to be on trial now, the little brother. You'll never see a picture of him. And I was definitely being monitored at that time because I had some weird phone calls and stuff. Definitely like it was not good. In retrospect, like people would like I was getting like warnings and stuff on Facebook, and I was like, no, it's fine. I'm like, oh, that's the guy. Like he's not saying I'm a friend, I'm worried for you. It was like, no, I'm the FBI and I'm warning you, is what I think was going on. But I said, you'll never see a picture of that guy alive again. And a couple of days later, the Boston Globe had this kooky, weird, distorted picture of him. And then you never did see one again. So you're finding the flaws in their stories. And that's what I worry about.
Yes. And I think they're planting a bunch of flaws now to distract us, because the
Yes.
only, and I've said this so
Erica
many
Kirk.
times. Oh my gosh, it plant from the beginning. Like, what in the hell? Like, she had
I
either
am
Charlie is not dead,
right. 100%. Or she's
or
a robot.
she was his handler. She was
Totally. Yeah.
placed in his life for a
She
reason.
might
But
be an
this whole
android, though.
Charlie, and that's my point, is this whole Charlie Kirk thing is because the only theory and scenario that doesn't make sense is the official one.
Yes. So it's like fishing. They're getting the idiots who fall for the idiotic, and then they're using them to gaslight us who are like, this is idiotic. Like it's genius. These people are genius, and they probably getting this stuff listening to us. However, it is a spiritual work of mercy to educate, to correct errors and stuff. So if it's like a moral tenet to do what we're doing, I think you have to not worry about the possible downside.
Yes. And I do feel like I'm doing the right thing. Even though I
Yeah.
said what I said, I'm still using my discernment. And I think
Yeah.
if I wasn't, then I wouldn't have said what I just said.
Yeah.
This has been so awesome. And I'm going to give you the floor for a little bit, just to maybe direct people where they want to find you. Actually, right now, if you guys scroll down right now, I have all of her links linked right there. So please do go give her a follow. But
Thank
I
you.
am going to let you plug away and leave us with anything that you might not have, upcoming things you might want us to know about.
Okay. So it's the Monica Perez Show. It would be monicaperezshow.com. I'm also on Substack. You can find Linktree, X, Rumble, YouTube. And this year. So I'm in Altadena. My house was like freaking surrounded by flames in January, like, when LA burned to the ground. And it's actually been way more difficult than I thought. to get back on our feet. And so I haven't been doing a lot of like live news shows. That's my bread and butter. That's the thing I'm really good at, is like I can tell you what happens today and what it really means. But I have been doing plenty of interviews. I've been reading, we read books and talk about them. Saucers of the Illuminati by Jim Keith is the last one. We had a lot of really good ones. And but tomorrow I'm recording a Cognitive Dissidence, which is a new show I do once a month with Hervoy Morich of Geopolitics and Empire and Parallel Mike. And so we do hit on like what's really happening. And I love that show because the three of us got together realizing that the assassination attempt was ridiculous. And we were the only people immediately was like, that's ridiculous. And like nobody else said that. And like, it was almost like a, a test.
Yes. Okay, so I'll tell you something.
that's
That
it,
was the
yeah.
first time I got called a libtard, is because, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
you obviously don't know who you're talking to.
Yeah,
But
they polarized it.
yeah, so I posted something about how the cameramen were, when that video first came out, I reposted it and somebody was like, "Oh, found the libtard." And I was like, "I used to give you your news, you red hat wearing
Right.
motherfucker."
No, I know. It's crazy. It's the cult of personality. It's amazing. Their ability, powers that be, to manipulate people's psyche is unreal. So, but anyway, I've got like 1,000, literally more than 1,000 old shows. The one thing I would like, if you do like the show, to give me some stars on iTunes, because it's good for the search. And I've been in a little bit of a stall because I've the fire, but I'll be back 100% doing everything pretty soon. And but that's all right. Like, just follow me if you like me.
Yeah, heck yeah. And please do give her a star, give her a follow, and
Likewise.
comment, even if it's to say, I didn't really like this show, because it still helps boost my show. So even if it's a
Oh,
bad
that's good
comment,
to know. Yeah.
go ahead and leave it. And please do give her a follow. Monica, I hope that your name is written next to mine on the government watch list. Okay. I just hope that that's where we
Uh-oh.
lie together, because the things that you're doing is just amazing. And I hope to one day get on that level of just excellence that you sit at. And
Well,
hopefully we can do this again sometime.
to quote Jack Burton, ride or die.
Heck yeah,
We'll
ride or
ride or
die.
die together. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Awesome, Monica. And we're going to end this the way that we always do, and that is keep digging down those rabbit holes.